The loudest man in the room is the weakest. You already know this. He talks first, he reacts fast, but he rarely wins. The man who speaks less watches more. He waits. He sees what others miss. And when he moves, it's precise. That man, he's already 2 steps ahead. This is not a motivational speech. This is a survival manual for men who are tired of being emotionally drained, pulled into drama, controlled by noise, and losing control without even noticing. If you've ever walked away from a fight, a message, a conversation, thinking, "I shouldn't have said that," or worse, "I gave them power I didn't want to give," then this video is for you, because silence is not weakness, it's not fear, it's power, mastered and contained. You'll see how grounded men stay calm while the world burns around them, how to stop explaining, how to stop overreacting, and how to start owning every room without raising your voice. Forget charisma. Forget charm. The world doesn't need more loud men. It needs silent ones, and the silent man always wins. They want you to be loud. They want you to react, because if they can trigger you, they can control you. Silence in a world of noise is not weakness. It's warfare. Look around you. The internet, the streets, even your workplace. It's all become a shouting match. Opinions are thrown like punches. Outrage is currency. And silence is the enemy of those who profit from your distraction. But the silent man, he's building something they can't see. Imagine this. You walk into a room. 2 men are arguing. Voices raised, fingers pointed, egos clashing. And in the corner, 1 man is quiet, observing, calculating, not because he's afraid, but because he's already won. The loud men are busy reacting. The silent man is already thinking. 2 moves ahead. Seneca once said, "It is better to conquer grief than to deceive it." And that's the essence of silence. Not pretending you're unaffected, but mastering what affects you. We've been trained to think silence is a lack of confidence, but confidence doesn't need an audience. Real power moves in shadows. It doesn't ask for permission. It acts when the time is right. Think about the men you admire, the mentors, the legends. Were they shouting all the time? Or were they the ones who spoke less, but when they did, the room listened? There's a reason the lion doesn't need to roar, because he knows who he is. The dog barks. The wolf watches. Now here's the trap. The world convinces you that silence is passivity, that if you're not constantly showing up, speaking up, pushing back, you're losing ground. But that's not strategy. That's panic. And panic is exactly what your enemies want you to feel. Because when you're loud, you're predictable. When you're silent, you're dangerous. So ask yourself this. When was the last time you paused before responding? When was the last time you chose stillness over stimulation? Because every moment you resist the urge to react, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Silence is not absence, it's presence, refined. It's how a man separates the signal from the noise. And it's where your transformation begins. They told you to be a man, but they never told you how. So you watched the loud ones, the aggressive ones, the ones who punched walls, raised voices and barked orders like strength was something you had to show, or you'd lose it. And for a while, maybe you believed them, but something in you knew better, because the strongest man in the room is the one who doesn't need the room to know. He listens more than he speaks. He observes more than he acts. And when he does move, he moves with intention, no wasted energy, no wasted words. In a world that confuses noise with power, restraint feels like rebellion. Try it. Next time someone disrespects you, don't defend yourself. Let the silence sit. Watch how it unsettles them. Watch how their voice gets louder, their gestures more frantic, as if your calm is exposing their chaos. You see, silence isn't passive, it's not weakness. It's not fear, it's control. It's the refusal to be dragged into a storm just because someone else is drowning. The world wants your reaction. It feeds on it. Algorithms are built to reward outrage. Markets are built to exploit impulse. People test you to get a response, but the man who chooses when to speak, when to fight, when to walk away, that man is unpredictable. And unpredictable men are powerful because they can't be played. They can't be baited. They don't chase noise. They create silence, and from that silence, they see more. They think deeper. They strike harder. You ever notice how the great warriors, the real legends, they never talk before the fight. They study, they wait, they smile, because they know if you're patient long enough, your enemy will always make the first mistake. But you'll be ready, because you didn't waste your strength proving anything to anyone. You trained in silence. You endured in silence. You became a weapon while they were too busy yelling into the void. Restraint is not absence, it's strategy. It's choosing not to fire until the shot is lethal. It's knowing your power and not giving it away in moments that don't deserve it. So the next time the world tries to pull you into its chaos, remember this. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. Silence isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of control. Picture this. Two men walk into a room filled with tension. One talks fast, gestures wildly, commands attention. The other sits still, says nothing, eyes sharp, posture straight. Who has more power? We've been sold a lie. That dominance is about volume. That leadership requires charisma, assertiveness, and constant presence. But the Stoics knew better. True strength is not loud. It is still. Stillness is strategy. In chaos, the man who can pause, even for a second, sees what others miss. In conflict, the one who doesn't flinch holds the upper hand. While others react, he calculates. While they burn energy, he conserves it. This is not laziness. It's discipline in its purest form. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire on earth in silence. He journaled at night, led in calm, and made decisions in quiet defiance of the madness around him. Stillness disarms. Try it. The next time someone tries to provoke you, do nothing. No defense, no attack, just stillness. They'll project onto They'll fill the silence with their own fears, their insecurities, their weakness, and you'll remain unreadable, mysterious, dangerous. Stillness protects. In a world obsessed with reaction, where everyone's broadcasting their every thought, fear or outrage, silence becomes armor. You're not hiding, you're observing, and when you do speak, every word lands like a blade, because silence gave it weight. Stillness commands. There's a reason the most respected men in any room often speak last, or not at all. People lean in when they talk, not because they're loud, but because they're rare. When you're always calm, your calm becomes louder than noise. When you're the eye in the storm begins to revolve around you. So how do you cultivate this stillness? It's not about shutting down, it's about slowing down. Breathe before speaking, pause before answering, watch before reacting. Journal, reflect, walk alone without your phone. These are not luxuries, they are training. In every quiet moment, you're sharpening the sword you won't need to swing. This is how calm becomes a weapon, a silent one, but lethal. Every time you react, you hand your power to someone else. Most men don't realize they're in a war, not against the world, but against their own impulses. And most lose daily. A glance, a tone, a word. These are the sparks that ignite men who have no fire under control. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But when you're reactive, you suffer in both. The reactive man is a puppet, tied not by strings, but by emotions. And each time someone pulls on guilt, shame, pride, or ego, he dances. But the silent man, he watches the strings. He names each emotion as it rises, like Epictetus taught. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Let that sink in. They may throw words, but it's you who chooses to bleed. There's a brutal elegance in restraint, because silence isn't passive, it's strategic stillness. The silent man plays the long game. He doesn't win arguments, he wins leverage. He doesn't react in seconds, he responds in hours. Or not at all. Marcus Aurelius faced entire empires crumbling, yet in his meditations he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So he didn't panic. He didn't lash out. He ruled his mind before he ruled Rome. You must learn to do the same. Silence is not weakness. It's the refusal to surrender control. It is the moment between stimulus and response, where virtue is forged or lost. So when they provoke you, pause. Not because you're unsure, but because your silence is heavier than their noise. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them feel the absence of your reaction, like a weight in the room, in a world addicted to noise. The man who controls his tongue controls the battlefield. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lives something most men never discover: power, choice, freedom. A man who lives by impulse is not a man. He's a storm, loud, violent, predictable, and like all storms, he burns out fast, leaving wreckage behind. But the man who pauses, he becomes something rarer, unpredictable, unbreakable, unmoved. Most men confuse speed with strength. They rush to speak, to prove, to win. But the silent man knows, the longer you wait, the more control you gain. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And that estimate, that judgment, it happens in the pause." The reactive man never sees it. He's too busy defending his ego to protect his peace, too focused on looking strong to actually be strong. Wisdom doesn't shout, it waits. So when someone offends you, pause, feel the heat rise. But instead of reacting, notice it, name it, own it. That pause, that quiet breath between thought and action, is where you stop being a prisoner and start becoming a philosopher. Epictetus didn't need a crown to lead men, he just mastered himself. And as he taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. That's why the silent man always wins. He's not faster, he's deeper. While others play checkers, he plays silence like chess. Every pause is a move, every non-reaction a layer of power, and that power compounds. In business, in conflict, in relationships, in the war inside, he may lose battles, but he never loses himself, because the pause isn't empty, it's sacred, it's potential. Potential to choose wisdom over wrath, vision over vengeance, virtue over ego. So next time you feel the urge to speak first, pause and let your silence ask the question their noise never could. Who's really in control here? Most people speak because they're uncomfortable with silence. They fear it exposes them, that if they don't fill the space, someone else will define who they are. But the silent man knows the truth. Silence doesn't expose weakness. It reveals power. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. A quiet man walks into a room and everyone takes notice. Not because he demands attention, but because he doesn't. You don't need to raise your voice when your presence already speaks. For you, you don't need to win every argument when you've already won your peace. The Stoics taught that our opinions, not events, disturb us. And silence is how we sever that illusion. It's not just about not speaking, it's about listening so deeply that your ego can't interrupt. Try this. Next time you're insulted, say nothing, not out of fear, but out of principle. Feel the urge to retaliate and let it pass. You'll notice something rare. The silence hurts them more than any words could, because silence reflects. It turns their noise back on them. It holds up a mirror to their insecurity, and that mirror is merciless. The man who stays quiet when falsely accused, he owns the room, because he trusts something more enduring than approval, his character. In the Senate of Rome, the loudest voices were often the most desperate, but the man who paused, the man who weighed his words like gold, he ruled minds without ever raising his tone. Words are easy. Anyone can speak. But to choose silence when you could dominate, That takes discipline. It says, I don't need to prove anything. I already am. And in that stillness you become untouchable, because they can attack your name, your image, even your silence. But they can't touch the man who no longer reacts. Remember, true strength doesn't echo, it radiates. And when the world gets loud, let your silence be the loudest thing in the room. People don't fear what they can see. They fear what they can't read. And silence makes you unreadable. The silent man walks through life misjudged, and that's his edge. In meetings, he's mistaken for uninformed. In arguments, for weak. In crowds, for invisible. But what they don't understand is this. He's not silent because he lacks something to say. He's silent because he doesn't need validation. While others perform, he observes. While they rush to speak, he watches what they reveal. And in that stillness, he gathers power. Being underestimated is a gift. It lowers their guard. It blinds them to your depth. So when you act, when you finally speak, the impact is seismic. The Stoics believed in being effective, not impressive, in cultivating the strength to act without the need to be seen. And the silent man embodies this. He knows the battlefield is rarely public. The real wars are internal. Conquering the self, the impulses, the ego, that's where dominance begins. So let them overlook you. Let them laugh, interrupt, dismiss. You lose nothing in that moment. In fact, you gain the one thing that truly matters: leverage. Because when the silent man moves, he does so with precision. Not noise, not drama, just impact. And by the time they realize his strength, it's too late. The deal is closed. The decision is made. The course is already shifted. He didn't need to convince anyone. He didn't need to shout. He let others drain themselves with noise while he prepared in silence. And when the silent man finally speaks, it's not for applause. It's because it's time. So if you've ever felt overlooked, ignored, or dismissed, good. That's your camouflage. That's your armor. Use it. Because the world isn't moved by the noisiest man in the room. It's moved by the one no one saw coming. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of control. And like all forms of mastery, it doesn't come naturally. It must be trained. But how? It starts by understanding one truth. You are not your impulses, the urge to respond, to defend your ego, to fill every empty space with words. That's not strength, that's conditioning. The discipline of silence begins in the pause, that sacred moment between stimulus and response. Most men rush to fill it. The silent man expands it. Before replying to criticism, pause. Before reacting to offense, pause. Before explaining yourself, pause. Because in that space, you reclaim your power. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And nothing wastes more time than needless words. So how do you cultivate this? There are 5 practical steps. 1. Practice intentional restraint. Silence is not passivity, it's precision. Start with small choices. Let someone interrupt you, and don't correct them. Let someone misunderstand, and resist the urge to explain. You're not responsible for their perception. You're responsible for your direction. 2. Journal before you speak. Most people talk to figure out what they think, but the Stoic talks after he's already reflected. Write what you feel, then decide what's worth saying. Your journal becomes your training ground, your verbal gym. 3. Train in discomfort. Be silent in awkward moments, in rooms that expect you to speak. In arguments where silence is mistaken for weakness, let them squirm, let them guess. You are building tolerance for both silence and misunderstanding. 4. Study the masters. Watch how Marcus Aurelius wrote pages and pages to himself, but gave few public speeches. He led with calm, because the man who rules himself doesn't need to dominate others. 5. Embrace solitude. Silence is most easily practiced alone, but the true test is in the crowd. So withdraw often, not to escape, but to sharpen, so that when you return to the noise, you carry silence within you. Because silence isn't just a tactic, it's a way of being. It's the daily choice to value peace over pride, depth over display, clarity over chaos. And the man who commits to this path slowly becomes unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because he becomes harder to move. At first, silence feels like a sacrifice. You give up the last word. You surrender the spotlight. You stop proving yourself. But slowly, it becomes something else. You no longer need to defend your image because your life becomes your response. You stop wasting energy in arguments that don't matter because you realize your peace is more valuable than being right. You gain a kind of power that's invisible to most, but undeniable to those who feel it. People start speaking differently. Around you, they pause, they hesitate, because your silence commands attention without demanding it. You become unpredictable, not because you're hiding something, but because you're not leaking everything. And in a world addicted to noise, your quiet presence becomes magnetic. That's when you realize silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom in waiting. Silence isn't withdrawal, it's strategic clarity. You start to hear more, not just what's said, but what's meant. You see people's intentions before their words catch up. You start playing life at a different level, a quieter level, a deeper level, a level where noise can't touch you anymore. This is what happens when a man reclaims his stillness. He no longer reacts. He responds with purpose. He no longer begs for approval. He builds from within. He no longer fears being misunderstood because he understands himself. And in that silence, he becomes unshakable, not louder, not flashier, not more aggressive, just undeniably composed. You've made it this far. That already says something. In a world built to distract you, you chose stillness. In a culture that rewards noise, you leaned into silence. Now you know. Silence isn't about saying nothing. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to speak to be felt, because real strength doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, lives intentionally, and leaves an echo that speaks louder than any voice ever could. So take this with you. The next time life tries to provoke you, don't perform, don't react, just breathe, observe, and respond from a place no one can shake, because the silent man, he's already won. If this resonated with you, if something deep inside you feels like it's waking up, subscribe to the channel. Not for motivation, but for the kind of clarity that rewires you from the inside out. Your calm is your advantage. Your silence is your edge, and the man you're becoming, he doesn't need to shout.